Hello everyone, welcome back to the gaming tier of Patreon. Today we are discussing everything going on in the gaming industry that I have seen so far. And at the time of recording this, it is Wednesday, and I already have a few topics to cover for you in this video. So it's an interesting week and an interesting situation, and we're just going to get right down to it. So the first thing I want to talk about is Destiny 2. Destiny 2 occasionally has massive issues when it comes to cheaters and hackers. And in this particular case, the beloved Trials of Osiris, one of the top-end PvP modes in the game, was disabled over the weekend because of match fixing. So, it became a massive thing, and a lot of us were wondering why in Iron Banner we were having so much problems getting very far in our bounties, and why it took 7 hours of gameplay for me to get through a couple of those, bounties for the week. Anyways, the way this worked is it was a match fixing ring. So it originally started in China and Hong Kong, where out of the 3 players that would group up, 2 of them would have the Hake emblem, which is an orange, ugly looking emblem that I was never a huge fan of. 2 of the 3 players in the group would have this emblem, and the third person who had just any other emblem was essentially the go-between. And what would happen is each of these players would be on an alt account or a burner account or something that was not their main character. Because with trials, you have to get a card, and you only get so many attempts on that card before you can no longer use the card, and you have to wait for the following weekend to go back into Trials of Osiris. Yes, this is a thing. It is only active over the weekend in order for people to get their rewards. And you would only receive rewards after 3 consecutive wins, 5 consecutive wins, or 7 consecutive wins. So what these people would do is they would queue up on these alt accounts, and if they encountered a group of 3 where they also had 2 of the Hake emblems and 1 person that was separate, then the one who had the separate emblem would contact the other person on Steam, and they would effectively roll dice, or do sort of like a rock, paper, scissors, if you will, in order to determine who was going to be the winner and who was going to be the loser. Whoever won the die roll in Steam would be, their whole team would log off their account, go onto their main characters, go back into the match, re-queue, and the losing team would essentially forfeit. They would leave the match so that they would get the temporary ban or whatever it would be, because they're the ones that lost the roll, so they don't get the win. And it's on a burner account, so they don't care. So they would log off. That meant that the other team would win by default, and this elevated the amount of flawless cards that were being turned in at the lighthouse in the game. And it was a YouTuber, Lunarated, who noticed that he was getting a lot of free wins against people with the Hake emblem, and said, that seems weird, did some digging, and passed it off to Bungie. And Bungie discovered that this is a whole ring that actually spread worldwide, and a lot of people were doing this so that they could get those amazing rewards in the lighthouse for having flawless cards. In fact, it was so high that it was unreasonable and they disabled the mode. So, I just summarized this PC Gamer post, by the way. But, yeah, trials report. According to our data, nearly 50% of the players entering trials went flawless on PC this week. It seems a bit high, so we looked into it. It turns out that of the 23,661 flawless PC players so far, 11,281, that's 48% of them, have had 0 kills this week, and 16,300, 69%, had 5 or less, which is extremely suspicious because in order to get, that flawless card, you've got to have gone through a number of kills. It seems very weird that you would have perfectly placed shots like 100% of the time, and such a low or non-existent, KD ratio. Like if your kills is massive and high, or whatever it happens to be, and you have 0 deaths always, it is extremely suspicious. And so through the course of the weekend, Trials was disabled. And it was just a very interesting situation that happened. Now, I don't know about you guys, but Destiny's PvP is painful. I don't even do PvP in many games. I'm not against PvP. What I'm against is just imbalance. And so I have been part of a couple of groups where we have essentially PvP tournaments. So I am with a couple of Rocket League organizations where it's constantly people against each other. And you're talking about tournaments in which you can actually win money. So there is actually reason to improve your skill and to be like good players, and not to cheat your way. I mean, yes, you could make a claim to say that, I'm gonna win this 10 grand tournament and I'm going to cheat to get there, but tournament rules, there are so many things that you have to go through to even enter these tournaments. They generally aren't free. If you are a professional player, you're traveling, you don't want to screw your reputation, and if you're part of a big name team and they find out that you're cheating, goodbye, you're not on the team anymore. Like if you're found to be cheating in a professional setting, you've just screwed yourself so badly it's not even funny. And Destiny is not a hardcore PvP game. I hate to break it to you guys, but there are so many other games that you benefit so much more from the PvP than bragging rights. You know what I mean? Like, if you are seriously like, oh, well, I'll show you, it's not hard. Like, just because you download a hack or a cheat program or manage to fix the system so that you always win, like, what do you get? A couple of weapons in game? Whoop-de-fucking-do. The next season is gonna start and you're gonna have to do it all over again. Like, it makes no difference in the grand scheme of things. I don't understand why people in Destiny would try to show off their EP and be like, oh, I'm the best because I've got, flawless cards. No, 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 no. Like, it's just, fuck off. Whatever. I'm glad that they disabled trials for the weekend to curb that from happening, but it made the other PvP modes so much harder. Because some of us enjoy at least some of the modes. I don't like all of the PvP modes, but a couple of them are interesting to me. And I looked at this like, wow, how pathetic do you guys have to be? Like, you're not even trying to get money for this, you're just doing this for a few weapons. Like, it's the most pathetic thing I've ever heard. I can't even. Alright, so now we move on to the next topic at hand, and that is Epic Games. This week is very interesting. Epic Games actually released a statement or a press release on March 2nd, so for me that was yesterday, for you guys it'll be a couple of days ago. But Tonic Games Group, makers of Fall Guys, joins Epic Games. So Tonic Games Group is behind the sensation that is Fall Guys Ultimate Knockout. So your game isn't going to be changing. Epic will continue to make the game excellent. Epic Games has done really well for providing, you know, a lot of free games, giving developers a higher cut so that they get more of the profits instead of Epic Games, who's simply hosting, you know, their games and their services. And think what you will about their system. Way back when Steam first started, it was utter horseshit, and the security risks that came with Steam were super high. The reviewing on Steam is absolute garbage. Yes, I understand you guys want your achievements and your stupid little play cards that you get that really very few people actually use. Yeah, you got the Steam sales, but at what cost? It's something I will get into in a bit, right after this one, actually. But Epic Games also, you know, purchased Psyonix, Rocket League, and that has been hugely successful for Rocket League to come up and do extremely well, and Fall Guys will also continue to grow because of the support that Epic Games has. So I see this as a good investment for the fans, for the company, for Epic Games. I feel like this could be really interesting to see where Fall Guys goes, and if it's more sustainable over time, because Fall Guys seemed like a game that was sort of like a flash in the pan that like everybody loves, and it's this cool community game that people will play for a while, but then you're not going to see as much of it. And that's kind of the nature of the video gaming industry, where people move on to the next latest and greatest. So it's no surprise to me if Fall Guys just sort of fell by the wayside and then they had to find some other cool, innovative idea to sort of go with. But with the partnership with Epic Games, I feel like this will give them a little bit more sustainability, stability, and they can produce great content on top of what they've already produced and continue to move forward as a game development company. So we'll see what happens. I am not sure fully what to think. You know, Epic Games is making a lot of huge moves. In fact, there are a lot of video game companies right now that are buying up a variety of different studios, and that means they're absorbing a bunch of different games, and it just makes things a lot more interesting when it comes to the gaming landscape. Alright, next on the list is something that I've known about for, I want to say, the better part of a year. Possibly longer. And I'm going to give a little bit of context. I am a person that really enjoys puzzle games, and I do really enjoy Sherlock Holmes and, Columbo and Murder, She Wrote and the Room series, which I was just streaming The Room for earlier this week. And thus I pay attention to puzzle games that are out there, even if they're games that I may or may not own or may not have tried yet. I will still at least know of their existence because I'm always looking for fun, interesting puzzle games to play. And at one point last year, maybe the year before, Sherlock Holmes, the video game series, was taken off of Steam. You could not purchase it anymore, and it set the industry into a bit of a loop going, what the hell happened? And that is because the developer and the publisher seem to be having massive issues with their terms, with their contract, with who knows what is going on behind the scenes, but it has sort of cascaded over time and put Frogwares in a very interesting and difficult position where they have dealt with more than one publisher screwing them over to this point. Now, before I go any further, I actually want to say something about this. And what I want to say is, what follows this point in time is 100% my own personal thoughts and opinion about the subject. It has zero bearing to my job to do press releases or anything of the sort. I do not want any bad blood happening between the people who I write for and the developer or the publisher in this scenario. I am not looking to make things complicated. This is why this is not an article that I'm writing. I'm releasing it to my own personal Patreon as my own personal opinion. If I am asked to put up a press release regarding anything having to do with the developer or the publisher, I will still abide by the terms of that agreement with my employers. And thus, please keep in mind that all of this is my own personal take. It has nothing to do with anything outside of this scope. So with that said, I was contacted about Frogwares releasing a YouTube video regarding the sinking city. And again, Frogwares is the developer. NACON, or they were formerly known as Big Ben Interactive, decided to publish the sinking city on Steam without the permission of Frogwares, who is already, as far as I understand, was already working on getting all of the licensing and everything that needs to be done to put their game on Steam. And what happened was NACON decided to publish the game on Steam anyways, but they removed the Frogwares logo out of the intro bit, the embedded videos, or not videos, the embedded content that would redirect you to purchasing uh, Sherlock Holmes or, any of their other games. They removed a couple of things off of the main menu. It's actually a very interesting and scary situation that they're doing out in the open, that people can track down and take a look at. I will link the YouTube video below where they talk about how they know that the version on Steam is essentially pirated and who did it. And they went forward and are engaged in a massive legal battle that actually has been continuing because of other breaches of contract between Frogwares and NACON. And I know that sounds really complicated, but it's as I said, this has been occurring sort of over the last few years, and Young Yi discussed it as well. I watched that YouTube video, so I'll link that in the description so that you can take a look at what all has happened, because he summed it up extremely well, better than I can at this point in time. So anyways, I have the Kotaku article. PC developer issues takedown notice against its own game, claims publisher pirated it. So, the Sinking City developer Frogwares has publicly accused former publisher NACON of pirating the Lovecraftian adventure game for its recent re-release on Steam, the arrival of which put the Ukrainian studio in the weird position of asking potential customers not to purchase its own game last week. So, something important to know is if you looked at the Steam front page where they always list sales happening, they had the Sinking City listed on there at 60% discount. I actually considered looking at it and maybe buying it because it is the sort of game that I would be interested in. And I'm glad that I didn't do anything about that. Anyways, they did update this article and said Valve has told Vice that the game was removed from Steam earlier today at the request of developers Frogwares, who issued a DMCA takedown notice against publisher NACON, which Valve responded to. That is huge. Steam doesn't generally take games off of their store unless something huge like a DMCA takedown notice were to happen. And we've seen this a few times where, Steam will allow just about anything to be published on their platform and will only take something off when egregious things occur. And this is one of those things when you're given legal documentation saying, yeah, like, take this shit down, it is not right. And then they released a video where they showed exactly what was changed from the original version of the game to the Steam version of the game. That's pretty damning. So, Kotaku did try to contact NACON about the allegations, but of course NACON is not going to address these things, and that is scummy as shit. And personally, again, not having any ties to anything else personally, I will not touch anything published by NACON if this is the type of practice that they engage in. This is straight up illegal. This is shit. Who the fuck do you think you are, NACON? Like, honestly, like, I don't even have words. Like, did you think that Frogwares wasn't gonna find out? Like, you put the game on Steam. Like, don't you think the thousands upon thousands of people that use Steam every day wouldn't notice? Wouldn't say, hey, wait a second, who is the actual publisher? You didn't think the other games journalists, the big name people, wouldn't pay attention to something like that? Like, we're gamers too. Like, who the fuck do you think you are? Seriously. That is the most ridiculous and awful thing I've ever heard in my life. Fuck NACON outright. Stick with Frogwares. If you're going to buy their game, I will give you links as to the locations where you can legitimately support Frogwares, who's the developer of the game, so that you can support them instead of these scumbag NACON jackasses who decide they're going to rip off the coding and then change fundamental things in the game because they're pissed off with Frogwares for whatever the fuck reason. Because again, this is a dispute that has been going on for quite some time, and this is why they've been in a legal battle for a very long time. I don't even, but I personally am never going to touch anything by NACON with these kinds of actions. Like, this is ridiculous. So now, I have one more topic to cover, because this is slightly long. And the last thing we're going to cover is something that I know I'm going to regret in 2 seconds, and that is J.K. Rowling is once again somewhat wandering around the news adjacent to the news, and of course that's because J.K. Rowling is not the greatest person when it comes to representation and groups of people and everything surrounding that. Now, of course, this puts into question things like any inspired Harry Potter IPs, like Hogwarts Legacy. And again, this is personal opinion. I am kind of very glad about the news that I discovered yesterday, which was Jason Schreier put out a tweet. Hogwarts Legacy will have trans-inclusive character creation with body, voice, and gender all separated, sources say. This news follows J.K. Rowling's transphobic comments and the recent discovery that a producer supports Gamergate. Now, I am very glad that the developers have decided to include the transgender group of people by allowing you to create your own character and show what you want in this game, and even allowing you to choose whether you want to be a witch or a wizard, which always makes me laugh, but for reasons that have nothing to do with this news segment, so I'm not going to get into it. But I am extremely glad that they're doing this, and it comes at a cost, obviously, because J.K. Rowling doesn't want that. Now, the reason I say that is because one of the things that people need to understand is when you produce a creative piece and you are under contract, as an author, So, because I know this more from an author perspective, as an author, if I create a world and I create characters within that world, and I have an amazing story that blows up that a lot of people absolutely love, and a movie company or a game company approaches me and says, "We want to make your book into a movie or a video game," whichever, happens to do this in this scenario. When you originally sign the book contract is often, uh, if you're with one of the big five, or even if you're through a small press publisher, it is at the time of purchase that they will have provisions for movie options, translation rights, video game adaptations, etc. Which means that if in your original contract with the book company you do not have movie rights, if they decide to sell your book to a movie company, you have this much say in what happens in that movie, which means they can adapt it, they can change it, they can do whatever the hell they want with your world and your characters. We've seen this with The Witcher. I imagine that J.K. Rowling was not expecting for a video game to be coming out, and even still, depending on what that original contract was, she may have sold movie rights, but she might not have retained the rights to a video game. This might be telling as to why the developers can include transgender characters without having an issue otherwise. Because again, if it is sold outright to the game company and J.K. Rowling retains none of those rights, then she has no say, even if it's against her own belief. So this makes this extremely interesting because IGN has an article. Hogwarts Legacy, the upcoming game set in the world of Harry Potter, will allow for transgender characters. As reported by Bloomberg, sources have confirmed that players will be able to create a character that has either a masculine or feminine voice, no matter what their body looks like. Furthermore, they will be able to choose to be either a witch or a wizard, no matter what previous choices they made. This will then help determine what dorm they are placed in and how they are addressed by other characters in the game. This news follows the controversy surrounding Harry Potter creator J.K. Rowling due to her transphobic comments. Rowling was criticized for supporting anti-trans researcher Maya Forstater on social media, and also faced backlash by going on transphobic rants on Twitter and publishing an essay that contained harmful statements and unsubstantiated claims about the trans community. These comments by Rowling have made many uneasy about supporting Hogwarts Legacy, and it led to Warner Brothers clarifying that Rowling has no direct involvement with this RPG developed by Avalanche. So she did sell the rights. That is important to know. So, then it continues. Warner Brothers Interactive president David Haddad also spoke up on the matter in late 2020, saying, "I might not agree with her stance on a range of topics, but I can agree that she has the right to hold her own opinions." Which, fine. If you want to hold your own opinions, great, except that you're harming an entire community of people because reasons, like, we're 2021. We need to stop having people being unaccepting of others. Like, fuck off. People are people. Let them be who they want to be. You, J.K. Rowling, have the right to be female. Transgender persons have the right to be whatever they want to be. Just because you envision your work to be in one specific way that is awful and harmful to people does not mean you get the right to force it on other people. Just fuck off with that nonsense. That's all I've got to say about that topic. Anyways, with that said, it has been an interesting week so far. Hopefully there isn't going to be anything else that blows up and requires me to put together another video. We'll see what happens. But with that, I hope you guys have a fantastic day. I'll see you in the next video.